Kate Turner, there isn't much of my past that I can remember. A decent job, kids, a loving wife, and an ordinary man with average desires. At least, I thought my lovely wife Helen shared those interests. This is the story of how I discovered my wife, and I weren't as alike as I thought. It all started on a stormy, dark night. Or maybe not. I've always wanted to start a story with that sentence. In truth, it started one evening when I came home from work. Helen, my wife, was sitting on the couch in the living room, watching TV. As I walked in, she turned the TV off. I noticed the absence of any cooking smells. "What's going on? Do you want to go out tonight?" you asked. "Kelsey Cooley is at your mother's right now," Helen replied. "I wanted to talk to you in private." The sultry tone in her voice made me think I was in luck. "I know I shouldn't mention the role play," she continued, "but I just wanted to tell you how much I love it. I want us to make Wednesday activities a regular part of our bedroom." "Cowboy, what do you say?" she teased and raised her skirt to reveal her charms. "Aside from role play, I was at a loss." "Yes, you have spoiled me, but I understand you want to keep it a secret to make it more exciting. I want our unique brand of love more than just once a week, and I have wanted to ask you a question for a long time. How do you make yourself bigger during our time together?" It is just the thrill of horror overcame me. "Helen, I have no idea how to make myself bigger, and I have no idea about this Wednesday role play. Please tell me what you mean." Helen's expression turned to surprise. "Wednesdays at the Marquee Inn and Suites, you know." "I don't know," I said, shaking my head. "God, please. About 6 weeks ago, you emailed me saying you had found a way to make our sexual encounters even more exciting. The plan was for me to go to hotel room 301, take off my clothes, put on the mask that was on the bed, and lie down. Even after you had tied me to the bed, I was not allowed to move. You freed me and left after you slept with me. I was to wait until you left before I took the mask off. We were to pretend we were having an affair. It was to add a lot of excitement to our sex life. You said we couldn't talk about it for a week. It was so unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. We had never had sex like that before. Also, you seemed bigger than usual. Like I said, I thought it was all to do with the unique thrill of imagining each other as different lovers." Tears ran down her face as she pleaded, "Oh, Kel, please tell me it was you." "Helen, I'm so sorry. I've never been to the Marquee, not with you, with anyone." "Are you telling me I've had sex with anyone other than my husband in 6 months? She went to the toilet and threw up. After taking a moment to compose herself, she returned to the living room where I sat stunned. "You must excuse me, Kel. To be honest, I thought it was you. I was over the moon, and now I feel like a fool. I've been outsmarted. That's why he didn't have sex with me." Spoken in the room. Damn, he wanted me to keep thinking it was you. "Tell me you'll forgive me, Kel, please. I'm at a loss for words. It all seems so unreal. Why? And how could someone do this to us? How could you not know it wasn't me? After spending 6 nights with him, I assumed it was you. Everything he did was unusual, but I thought it was part of the role play to explore something else more creative and sexual than we'd ever done. In my opinion, he's just more sensual than you." I got angry and said, "Maybe you should find out who this guy is who is supposedly better in bed than me, so you can be his wife. Do and talk to me like that. I'm looking for this person because of what he did to me. I want to take away everything that's his. Don't you realize that he basically sexually abused me?" I calmed myself down. "Helen, I'm so sorry. I haven't looked at it from your point of view. Let's try and approach this sensibly. If we can, who would want to do something like that to us? It has to be someone who really despises either you, me, or both of us, or maybe was someone has a secret crush on me and found a way to have sex with me without convincing me to cheat on my husband." Helen's whole body was shaking. "The thought of someone thinking about having sex with me every night makes me shudder. I mean, someone other than myself, of course." I tried to lighten the mood, but it didn't work out as planned. "You weren't the one who was attacked, idiot." I apologize. "So where did the email come from?" I regret I didn't save the emails the sender instructed me to delete. The texts, they came from the email in your office. Someone who has access to my computer must be responsible. So even if it's just for a few moments, I usually leave it on when I move away from my desk. The problem is this opens up dozens of possibilities. He still emails them. In fact, every time we meet, he usually confirms it beforehand and gives me a little hint of what to expect. He mentioned he wanted me to feel euphoric with anticipation. I was forced to ignore this email and deleting them. Now I understand why. Really, you did enjoy it indeed, but remember, I believed I was having sex with you. Damn it, Kel, I didn't believe I was having pleasure with another man. I thought it was you. Did he email about meeting up on Wednesday? No, not yet. I will write to him. In my opinion, you shouldn't email him back. When I wanted to cancel, he gave you a phone number where I could leave a message. Once I had to leave a message, okay, don't do anything for. Now tell me if he writes again. There was no intimacy in the Turner house that night and the following nights, as someone else had just been there. I couldn't bring myself to get involved in that way. Helen said she was afraid she might start fantasizing about having sex with the other man, which would ruin the experience and make her feel like she was cheating on me. A STD check seemed necessary for both of us. The mystery boyfriend sent Helen an email on Monday. When I got home from work, I showed it to me. The message, he confirmed that Wednesday was working for him. He wanted to persuade her to finally give him the key to the back door as part of the new role play. Helen said she had considered this possibility until recently. She had thought this type of engagement was going a step too far. I advised her to call him and tell him he wanted what he wanted. I hoped he would turn up on Tuesday afternoon. I went to Maris and spoke to the receptionist. I inquired if the man was working. The next day he confirmed he was. Then I asked him how to get to the room my wife was staying in. The next day, he knew that the couple who shared a room each week were not married, and so was not surprised I gave him in return for his cooperation. On Wednesday, we were ready to catch the man. Helen came in and went about her business as usual. After a few minutes, I noticed a man entered the room. It was our office worker, Richie Hammond. Every woman there, whether married or not, was pursued relentlessly by him. He was, of course, married with 2 children, and he obviously had no qualms about his family cheating. He would frequently glance at the picture of my wife on my desk and comment on how lucky I was to have such a beautiful wife. Every time he came into my office, I felt like spraying everywhere. After he left, I asked the front desk manager for a copy of the room key, but he refused to give it to me. I'm sorry, man, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job. The manager made sure only the person who paid could enter the room. He said a big part of our business is afternoon meetings. I'm sorry, man, he repeated. I was angry and kept wondering what was going on in that room. I was to stop before something happened, and she was to act like she normally would. I was beside myself. I'm going to call the police and kick the door down if you don't give me the key, threatened. I'm her boss. Sheep to sort this out. I asked. It was already a few minutes past the time I was supposed to enter the room when I finally got the key. When I walked in, Richie was standing behind her. He stopped in his tracks. Helen, who had not seen me yet, begged him to continue, claiming she was about to comply. Richie resumed his actions, but I grabbed him by the hair and yanked him away as I untied Helen and removed her mask. She looked displeased, then burst into tears. I urged her to put some clothes. Richie sat on one of the chairs looking surprisingly relaxed, despite the rapid deflation of his ego. At least I managed to spank her before you did. He noticed. I walked towards him, my eyes blazing with anger. He simply gestured towards the corner where a tripod was holding a camera. You do and want to hurt me, Kel. Every session your wife and I have is videotaped. Are you sure you want to publish it? I could make a decent amount of money from certain dodgy websites. Of course, I could email them to your friends and family for free, or we could just leave things as they are. You get them every other day, and I once a week. You are disgusting. You will never see my wife again if you give me the videos. I replied. Or what are you thinking of? Not something that doesn't make you look stupid or make your wife look unfaithful, or I'll kill you, I spat out. Richie was already giggling. You're going to leave your wife and daughter without a father or husband and without support? Sure, go ahead. Now that I have her, I'm a bit sick of her anyway. I'm going to do this. I'm never calling her again. If she calls me, that's obviously a different matter. His face broke into an incredibly wide grin. After Helen got dressed, we left on the drive home. She remained calm. As soon as we arrived, she stormed into the house, went upstairs, and spent quite a while in the shower. I waited downstairs. Finally, she came down and suggested we talk after dinner. We had to pick up Kelsey. Dinner was silent apart from Kelsey talking animatedly about her day. At 8 p.m., she went to bed. At 8:30 p.m., we were sitting at the kitchen table after making sure our daughter was asleep. And what do we do now? Helen asked. I'm not sure. I gave too many. Our problems could be solved if we could get the videos. Right now, a break-in seems to be the only option. But who could we get to do that if we go to the police? He'll just say you consented. His tapes will show how much you enjoyed it. Even if he gets arrested, the tapes will be released. We're in a fix. Do you have any ideas? No, I think we've gone too far. Maybe we should make an effort to put this all behind us and move on. Do you think that's acceptable? No retaliation. I'm afraid that any action we take will only make the situation worse. Let's just leave it alone. It will go away if we never speak of it again. After she left, she went to bed. I decided not to go with her, as had become customary of late. 2 months had passed. Helen was amicable, and did all the tasks that came to her with childcare and housework at home. We mostly avoided talking about anything other than Kelsey appointments and phone messages. Our sex life had become self-serving. I tried to avoid Richie. At work, he had that arrogant smile of a man who had cheated on me every time he looked my way, which was just another stab in the back. God, I wanted to wipe that smile off his face with my fist. I never gave up my ambition for revenge because I couldn't stop thinking about it. In the middle of one of my daydreams of revenge, I got a call. It was the receptionist at the Marquee. What was it about? Hey, mate, don't be mad at me. I have some information you might find helpful. Are you interested? I had no idea what could possibly interest me at that moment. How about the fact that Richie and her wife are up to their old tricks again? I was seething, but I tried to keep it matter of fact. It's hard to accept she despises him, and after he got caught at the Maris, why would he go back there? I'm not at the Marquee anymore. I work at the Red Roof on Kingston Road. I checked with the receptionist I'm covering for about Richie and her wife. They've been coming regularly for about a month. He claimed every Wednesday at the same time for, say, $500. I could get you the proof you need. To hell with you and my wife. I ended the call. I was so angry. I wanted to cry. Had explained that he would only continue if my wife called him. Her comments about how much she loved having sex with him came back to me. Helen didn't seem to feel deprived, even though we had never gone so long without intimacy, probably because she wasn't. I had no choice but to leave. I packed the things I normally take on a 3-day business trip. I went to the nearest motel with a bar that wasn't the Red Roof or the Marie. I went to the bar after checking into the Holiday Inn Express. I asked the bartender to suggest something for me since I didn't drink much. He gave me a Long Island iced tea. At first I thought it was too weak, but after the second round I had changed my mind. A high set in, and it was late as hell. Just as I was about to sink into despair, someone tapped my shoulder. Do you mind if I sit with you, Kel? I need to get in my drink too. Sob. I turned and saw a tall woman with long, curly, jet black hair. She was beautiful. Sorry, do I know? She replied. I Joan, Richie wife, for now. We met at the Christmas party last year. I looked again. How could I forget such a beautiful woman? Did I say that out loud? Joan glushed. I thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. How are you? I mean, why are you here? Are you always so talkative? Let me get this straight. I found out today about Richie's latest escapades with your wife. The receptionist called and demanded proof, so I paid her $500. I'm done with him despite his repeated promises to stop. I don't think he can meet her is just a coincidence. I just needed to get out of the house and get some fresh air. My mom is looking after my 2 kids. I came over because the look on her face seemed to reflect what I felt when I saw her. I remembered her from the Christmas party. No, if you'd rather be alone, but please come with me. I'm just amazed. I feel like we could have a lot in common. What will you drink? What would you like to drink? A Long Island iced tea. I_star. Love that drink. So I finally lost my virginity. Could you please make me a double? We talked and drank for several hours. Her wicked, irreverent sense of humor was incredibly personable and easy to talk to. Well, it's time to either get revenge or go to bed yourself. She finally realized. Which do you prefer? I don't think I could sleep with you as well as I would like, and I wouldn't be worthy of a woman as special as you. That was the sweetest disappointment I have ever experienced. I really hate missing out on an opportunity like this, and I promise you that was not meant as an insult. I would want to put my best foot forward. If we ever slept together, I would still wonder if I'm good enough for you. Oh no, I feel like I'm falling in love all over again. And I haven't even taken out the trash. I should have realized drinking a double was a bad idea. How about we meet tomorrow for breakfast? Joan interrupted. I could call you, or if you feel like it, I have a better idea. How about we share a bed so we both know when the other is going to wake up? Do you suggest we sleep together? Just sleep? But I could be persuaded to share a little affection tonight. I really don't want to sleep alone. I do and want to sleep either her room or mine. I have a suite I use as credit card. I owe him. I went to her room with a few of my belongings. We went through our nightly routines in the bathroom and then got into bed. We cuddled, kissed, and fell asleep within minutes, even though we were naked. She nudged me in the ribs after she woke up. First, if you don't wake up, I have to take advantage of your morning availability. Oh, how I wish to see her on top of me. My God, even though our spouses had already crossed that line, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was too early to commit adultery over brunch at the Waffle House next door. We grew increasingly somber. We talked about our marriages. We both wanted revenge and freedom from our husbands. The challenge seemed to be to find a way to divorce them without losing as much or more than they would. I would really prefer not to go back to that house. I would be content to just leave with the kids and forget about him. How are they going to do that? Won't he come after them? Or the kids? My family is wealthy. They promised me hundreds of thousands of dollars would be deposited into my personal account so the kids and I can file for divorce elsewhere. When I called them last night, to be honest, I would rather leave and let him handle the divorce. Are their kids going to school? They're going to miss their dad, right? No, he only agreed to have kids because that was a requirement of marriage, and I homeschooled them. After the second kid, I had my tubes clamped. They won't really miss him. I'm sure he won't miss them either. He barely has any contact with the kids and always complains when he is supposed to watch them while I'm away. He probably only has me for my money. Married, as I suspected, for a long time, but I don't care. Our marriage has given me 2 wonderful daughters, although they helped with the down payment on our house and other things. My parents were never willing to give my brother or me any money. They don't like Rich very much. I haven't thought about just leaving yet. I'm not as keen to go home as you are. The mortgage is in both of our names. Kelsey and Helen never really got along. Poop's baby wasn't Kelsey. Helen probably didn't want to take a few years off from her career. I think Helen loves Kelsey, who was always her daddy's girl, but I doubt she would do anything to win her back. She knows I will take good care of her. The more I think about it, the more the thought of just leaving has a strange appeal. Joan asked me, should we do it together if we feel it's best for both of us to leave our marriages rather than just get divorced? When she looked into my eyes, I thought I saw love there. Or maybe I just saw what I wanted to see. We only got one, spent 24 hours together. It was almost love at first sight, but not quite. I know it's ridiculous, but if I could bring my daughter, I would definitely join you. It's unbelievable that I'm even saying this. I've never made a decision that felt so important and yet so impulsive. I would like to know, where would we go? And would we tell anyone where we were going? Those are the first 2 questions we should ask ourselves, and then as many more as we can. This is my first plan. My Aunt Barbara owns a large cabin on Lake Champlain. Due to her health issues, she can no longer live there. If she is available, this would be perfect. A secluded cabin with plenty of room for us and the kids. The place looks like something out of a National Geographic photo. By chance, the cabin was available. I was staying at a motel for the next few days. Helen had noticed that she was resuming her Wednesday date with Richie, so I ignored it. I left her a single message saying I had to go away for a while. I quit my job and informed my supervisor. He was understanding, but also angry. He asked Rich about my plans with Helen would affect her. Apparently my case was not the first. I just said yes. I asked him to hold off until I was ready to go, even though it would have been too much. I would have liked to see Richie's reaction when he got the news. When I went to our bank, I withdrew almost all of the money from our joint accounts. Most of it was used to pay off the outstanding mortgage. Even after she cheated on me, I couldn't bring myself to withdraw all of our assets and money we had both contributed to the household expenses. Once the house was paid off, Helen's financial situation would resemble a divorce. She could sell the house at any time if she needed money to make things easier for her. I gave up my share of the house. I also stopped the automatic payments for insurance and utility bills. Once I quit my job, her health insurance would be canceled. Also, I put Kelsey as the beneficiary on my life insurance. At night, Joan and I talked about how we could minimize the damage to our children, what we could do to effectively disappear, and what our future might look like. We gave up sex. We didn't want our decision to take away from our divorcing spouses. Depends on our sexual relationship, especially because our emotions were running high. I'm not sure who was more frustrated. By the 3rd day, we came to the conclusion that our escape plan was feasible. The next day, while Helen was at work, I went home and packed what I thought Kelsey and I would need most. I thought about leaving a note. The only thing that came to mind was I hope it was worth having sex with him. My last destination for the day was Kelsey's school. I apologized for not letting them know sooner and told them Kelsey had a doctor's appointment. I told Kelsey we were going on a trip. She asked when Mom would be coming. Not on this trip, I told her. I was surprised by her calm reaction. When Joan's kids got home from school, she picked them up from their mom's house at 5 a.m. We were on our way, and Barb invited us to stay at the lake house. She regretted that she had sold it after the renovations were just finished. We were lucky because we had 2 cars available. After some initial stops at the 3 girls met, Kelsey started to ride with me. But as time went on, they started to switch places and ride with either Joan or me. By the time we got to the cabin, Joan and I had already given up the master bedroom. The girls, who were now a new trio, insisted on staying together. One of Joan's children wondered why she and I were sharing one bedroom while another remained empty. Luckily, one of the guest bedrooms was next to the second bathroom and was perfect for us. Joan explained that we would be staying in the adult's bedroom. Her older daughter then commented that adults usually have separate rooms. All the children had noticed that their parents had not spent many evenings together in the last few months, which Kelly confirmed. The three children slept in the same bed once the excitement of the day had died down. Thank God it was king-size. Joe and I each had a glass of wine. Barbara had given us a small wine cabinet to house the house. Joe gave me a mischievous smile and asked, "Are you ready to show off your skills in bed now that we have separated from our spouses?" Damn, she remembered what I had said that night at the Holiday Inn Express. I was worried that I may have set her expectations too high for my abilities in bed. It seems my former wife was a little disappointed in that area. But frankly, I don't trust her judgment in sexual situations or in any other matter if she has fallen for my worthless ex-husband. Furthermore, I strive to exert as much influence as possible over the quality of her performance. I hope it doesn't bother her when a lady is on top. My immediate response made it clear that it doesn't bother me in the least. After we retired to the adult's bedroom, we made love. The contrast between making love to Joan and Helen pleasantly surprised me. It was a positive change. Joan had a unique scent. I felt different. Everything seemed to have a new taste. But most of all, she offered a distinct feeling of lust. Then she said, "Can you do that again?" I honestly thought she was having a fit. Amazingly, I managed it 4 times. I managed 4 rounds that night, setting a new personal best. I couldn't remember how many times she climaxed. "So fine," Joan finally said as we were in. Fell asleep. I suppose that settled the question of sexual compatibility. We snuggled up together. The next morning we happily went shopping to get food for the children and ourselves. I enjoyed barbecuing as often as the weather permitted. Even though I had little money left after paying off the mortgage, Joan still received a substantial allowance from her parents. We didn't want for anything. Aunt Barb was the only one who knew where we were. After hearing our stories, Joan was able to keep our secret from her parents with ease. Over time, Joan began to homeschool the 3 children, while I gradually settled into the work as a laborer. I admit it was a lot of on-the-job training. Each month, the girls asked fewer questions about my wife and Joan's husband, or whether they wanted to see them. Soon, all 3 daughters began to address us as Mom and Dad. Living in the outdoors allowed them to fully live out their adventurous personalities. Greta, our closest neighbor, was happy to give us advice, as she had grown up with her own family in this. When we needed it, she started as a friend and finally becoming a grandmother figure to our children. Given the painful divorces Joan and I had both been through, we asked her not to question the children about their parents. She understood and agreed. Joan and I occasionally discussed whether we should turn to our past lives, although we feared that any contact could lead to someone finding us. Aside from worrying about Helen and Richie, we feared that the police might charge us with fraud and or kidnapping. To avoid a formal divorce and division of assets, to communicate more securely, we decided to use the internet. Greta agreed to have the internet installed in her home if we showed her how to use it. She wanted to send a letter to her grandchildren. When she spent time with our children, she missed her own children even more. We considered whether we should tell Greta the whole truth. We had not yet done so because we were afraid of disrupting the current smooth situation. It took Greta a month to set up Wi-Fi and satellite TV. We showed her how to use Skype and email. Seeing her grandchildren live on camera was a very special moment for her. One day, when she was with the girls, we're at the lake. We looked up some information on the internet. We found an advert for the sale of my previous house. Helen must have needed the money a year after we left. Richie and Helen announced their divorce, citing abandonment as the reason. Joe was informed by Aunt Barbara that her parents had sent out their annual Christmas message. Joe's mother, who knew that Joan and Barb were close, had included a special note in the letter to Barb. Barb suspected that Joe's mother had found out Joe's whereabouts. Barbara took the message as a warning. Helen was still looking for Kel, a private detective she had hired, had visited Joe's parents. The detective was familiar with Aunt Barbara, who had been warned by Jen's mother that someone might soon be snooping around her as she was afraid that her calls might be tapped. She had not called herself Joe's mother, had seen too many spy films. Barbara advised Joe and Kel to be and act quickly. Without the certainty of having extra income after the move, we did not have enough to make a major move. I took the risk and emailed my former boss to inquire about job opportunities. Instead of asking Joan's parents for help, he replied that I had reported a private investigator to him. My boss, who was upset that I had not informed him before I left, said he didn't care where I was then. Asked my opinion on Flagstaff, Arizona. I told him I couldn't say because I had never been there. He mentioned that there was a branch manager position available. He assured me of a job offer and offered to set up an interview. I asked how he could guarantee that. He explained to me that his brother was in charge of hiring employees and had already tried to hire employees for my previous job twice. Our goal was Flagstaff. Throughout the process, I was worried that working for a company would leave a trail for a capable private investigator. Just before entering Arizona, I had an idea. We booked a hotel room with 2 beds and had the girls spend some time in the pool. Joan did her best to calm my nerves as promised by my former boss's brother, especially wanted to know how. As soon as I could start, I told him that I would need to form an LLC and rename my business to a name other than my own. I explained that he would use my business to outsource services rather than hiring me directly. He agreed, knowing that outsourcing services is usually more cost-effective than hiring full-time staff. In the desert, we found a house. The children quickly adjusted to the completely new environment. I think they were relieved to escape the harsh winters we would have faced in our home country. Joan and I took a few months to feel safe again, and the children took a few more months to settle. In that fateful night, as Joan and I were getting ready for bed and turning off the lights, there was a knock on the door. I was skeptical because there were no neighbors around at that time. I reached for my gun and fired it through the peephole. I carefully saw that it was Helen. A flood of conflicting emotions rushed through my head. My stomach was tingling and my heart was pounding wildly. I informed Joan that we had a guest. By reaching for her, shouted. Joan entered the room as I walked in. That must be Bright, right? Inquired Joe. I nodded. Helen was the first to speak. The kids are probably in bed by now. I waited until the lights went out. I didn't want to wake them. In fact, they have been asleep for about 30 minutes. I replied, excellent. You are so hard to get a hold of. She grinned. I'm not here to cause trouble, so let me calm them both down. Immediately after you left or moved in with me and lost his job, I quickly realized I had swapped a Mercedes for a Hugo. Don't get me wrong, he was good in bed, but I was attracted to him for the sex. But sex is not enough for a couple living together. I gave him a deadline to find a job and pay his share of the bills. At first, he didn't believe me, but when a deputy sheriff came and threatened to put him in jail if he didn't go, he finally got it. Reportedly, he has found a job elsewhere. As far as my life is concerned, a therapist has helped me get back on track. Since then, I have been able to support myself both financially and emotionally. The cost of hiring a private investigator is high. I knew I had lost you and Kelsey when I filed for divorce a year later. I knew I had to move on, even though I wish I could have done things better. By filing for divorce, I was able to negotiate the terms of the divorce. I kept what little was left of you. To be honest, I think I fell apart with someone, and I am optimistic about him. I know I will not make the same mistake with him as I did with you, at least not in that regard. Why'd be here when you did it? I asked. Isn't rude to Smalt? Well, I'm over here. When I finally had some time alone to think about what I had done and what I had lost, I fell into a deep sadness. I couldn't live in peace without telling you how sorry I am, and that I don't blame you in the slightest for what you did. I want to make sure you don't blame yourself for this. I hope you don't despise me. I know it's too much to ask, but I would be grateful if you would forgive me anyway. I just want to apologize again. I hope Kelsey, Joan, and you are all happy. That's it. I have found closure. Now, Kelsey, what about her? Did you want to meet her? Do you intend to file for custody? I asked. I'm not going to lie. Originally, I was hoping to at least get joint custody. I have come to the conclusion, however, that it would probably do her more harm than good to see me, and especially live with me, when she is already adjusted to her new family. I don't think I could raise her without your help, no matter how amazing she is. If we were to see each other now, we would probably have feelings that would weigh on us for a long time. I just want to check on her well-being. Has she ever shown any interest in me or asked about me? How is her school performance? We have never forbidden them from asking about them or Richie, But none of the girls have done that. Joan said. We have told them, explained, that while you and Richie no longer want to be with us, you still want our new family to be happy. They have not yet expressed a desire to see you again, but that does not mean they are not curious about your well-being. I can tell you with some degree of confidence that they have all adjusted successfully. My girls Kelsey and I have become an inseparable trio of adorable little monsters. I homeschool them all, and Kelsey is doing 2 grade levels better on tests than she would be in public school. I really do love Kelsey as much as I do my 2 biological children, Helen and my other daughter. Tears clouded Helen's eyes. Thank you, she said. Have you 2 tied the knot yet? No, I replied. We weren't sure about our official divorce status. I thought so, Helen said. But I have a wedding present for you. She handed me a package. Here are copies of your divorce decrees prepared for execution. Her attempt to mock her seemed more like an attempt to hold back her tears. I had the same divorce lawyer as Richie. Her you 2 can now legally become a family if you want to be. Also, Richie and I have both agreed to give you full custody of our children. To make it official, you must be able to apply for adoption, Helen continued. Before she said I should go, she walked to the door and paused to watch Joe and I cried tears of joy at the wonderful news. I reached out to take my hand. Just let me go, Helen said. Through her tears, I promise never to bother you again. You have my cell number if you ever need to discuss anything about Kelsey. She left as I let go of her. Joe went to get a glass of wine for each of us. We needed something to ease our worries. We sat in silence for a long time. After a while, I noticed Joan smiling as I looked at her, who was proposing to who I said, grinning too. I have decided, I announced, that the only one who climaxes first tonight will be the one to ask the question. After thinking it through, we both sprinted to the bedroom. Helen drove off until she was out of sight. Then she paused and let the tears she had been holding back flow. She thought about her dilemma. By the time the private investigator announced the success, she had almost used up her financial resources. She had less than $1 left. Helen's intention to meet with Kel could end in 2 ways. Firstly, he could find out that Kel couldn't get along with Kelsey without her. Perhaps their relationship would have deteriorated, or Joan would no longer be with him. She could return to Kel and Kelsey's life, never to leave it again, and Kel would forgive her even if they didn't remarry. It wouldn't matter. In anticipation of this possibility, she loaded everything she had left into her car. Secondly, she could find Kel and Kelsey in perfect health. He could marry Joan, and they could even have a child together. Then she would give them the divorce decrees as a parting gift and claim she had only come to draw a line under it. Accepting this second scenario was the hardest for her, but she realized that she had to be prepared for it in order to achieve her goal, namely to draw a line under it. She had to leave the new family behind and move to the biggest city in the area to start over without having to worry about running into them in the glove compartment. She had a zipped bag with Kel's wedding ring, her own wedding ring, and other valuables that she no longer needed. She could pawn them to finance her new life. Helen stopped sobbing and continued her journey. Here I come, Phoenix. She thought, hey, maybe this is a divine sign. Maybe I too can rise from the ashes.